All right, welcome to the new era of the Dragzine Podcast, where we are now doing video as well as audio. And if you're going to do something like this, you got to go big the first time out of the gate. And what's bigger than Donald Long and his wife, Stephanie? What's going on, guys?
What's going on, player?
How are you doing, Brian?
Doing good, doing good. It's good to actually see you guys. I was only able to make it to the February race this year, and then, some disease happened or something, and we had to, stay in place. I don't know. We kind of ended up with this, so it's good to actually see you guys once again.
Good to see you, man. 2020 has been a little brutal, man.
It's been hard on us.
Yeah. And, in the event industry, you guys especially, it's people don't understand what it's like to try to put on an event with people, do they?
Not at all.
No, I mean, we slid in some stuff there, with the COVID-8 and the Magic 8, just because we wanted to make sure we kept drag racing going the best we could. And we had talked it over with Eric Dillard at Proline and a couple things like that. And, obviously if nobody's racing, nobody's breaking parts. And we needed to get out there and get some people racing again.
Yeah. That's kind of weird thing in the industry is the engine shop guys were starving while transmission shops and fuel tech and people like that were getting inundated because these racers had all of this extra money that they earmarked to go racing. They don't know what to do with, we're not good at saving money. We're like, I got $3,000. I'm going to buy this new widget. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you this right now, companies that sell, even products like, UPR and TRZ and Team C, those guys, Strange, they're just selling. It's funny how many parts that they are selling right now. Even it's crazy.
They're having a hard time keeping up with the online sales is what we heard because everybody's they were sitting around and they have time to just get on there and purchase.
Have time to make poor financial decisions.
Yes.
So kind of going off of this, what's been your take so far on the world of radio racing in 2020 this year, guys? With everything that's still happened, what do you think of the performances we've seen?
I mean, honestly, these guys are running good. Some of the big events got canceled, but if you look at these private test sessions and stuff going on, that's where a lot of some of the tracks actually did very well on a lot of private tests because if you couldn't have but 10 people on a property or 20 people on a property, but they were steady going out there, keeping plenty of social distancing, but they're renting a track and they're still testing. They're still going faster and faster. So when they did get a chance to get out there, they actually had some very good performances between, all over the place, honestly now. But if you look at, even the October deal, we had 10 or 12 days of carnage there of, people blowing up somewhere. But they actually ran fairly well considering they didn't actually get a whole bunch of big events.
Yeah, that's what's weird is that, we rolled out the Project Evil car at the NMRA finals and then brought it to your races. And we found out firsthand that when you don't have time to shake something down fully, the Carnage monster is an ugly monster with big teeth and it hurts.
Yeah. It can be brutal.
And, Stephanie, something I wanted to kind of hit you up on because you talked about this at Lights Out at various times when we were interviewing you and talking to racers and whatnot. The ladies this year in racing have stepped up big, at all levels. I mean, you look at Erica Enders, even at the NHRA, she's bad. That is one person they're saying, who would you not want to race in pro stock? All the racers, they're kind of I don't know about her. She's rough.
Definitely. We have so many upcoming women. The women racers are everywhere now. It's not just hit or miss. We have Melanie Salemi, who's right up there running Radial versus the World with the big dogs. And I wouldn't want to go up against her on a 315. And I know some of the guys, they look at it and they go, wow, look at that car and look at the performance that she has and what she's doing. I think she just won one of the big races in Orlando, second year in a row.
You got Leah
Ox, who's kind of gone back and forth. She's also part of Carolina No Time. Then you have Georgina Buckley. She missed out at Lights Out. We're going to have her back at No Mercy, though, with the Yellow Mustang. Heidi Carlisle, she runs with Radial versus the World. Jennifer Rice, Brooke Rice, she runs with
Pro
Pro
270.
275 now with her orange Mustang. It's just, the list just keeps getting bigger, and it's amazing. And it gives me chills just thinking about all the women that are coming in the radial world.
Drag racing is the most diverse motorsport there is across the board, front to back, and I will die on that hill if anybody wants to argue, because you go to any race, any week, anywhere, bracket race, it doesn't matter. You will see people from every walk of life, ethnicity, nationality, money background.
Absolutely.
What was crazy was I was at the Mel's race out of Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of female racers that were there, that kind of caught my eye. Like, man, you usually don't see like this amount across all classes, and they were doing well. And it's a very, very cool thing to see. It's like when I go to the drag strip, I rarely ever feel out of place with anybody that's there. And it seems like everybody else is just, we're all there having fun.
Mm-hmm. I think the women are not as intimidated anymore because they are seeing more and more women coming out. So that means that they're stepping in because they're not, I don't think they're as intimidated as it being an all male sport anymore.
No.
So I think that's why we're seeing more women.
The kind of pit off of that, you mentioned a few of the people running in Radial versus the World, and that class, we've seen a lot of interesting changes and kind of what's going on. You know, in your perspective, Donald, what's the current state of Radial versus the World? You know, the participation levels kind of all over the place at times. Has it become too much money? Is it outgrown itself? You know, what do you think is going on with it now?
Well, I think that no matter what, when you get to a certain level, which Radial versus the World is, you know, you got to almost compare it to, you know, a funny car or a top fuel type deal. Here's my take on it. I don't really think you have to have 32 and 50 car fields in RVW for the fans to have a great time watching it. I mean, to me, you know, if we get 18, 19, 20 entries, a 16 car field of RVW, you know, even 8 car fields of RVW have really, to me, you know, it's like we did the Magic 8 or the COVID 8, and it didn't really matter, you know, if we have 16 or 23. But yeah, obviously the money, you know, you have, you know, it's more of a professional type, you know, that's a very, very professional class. I mean, you have to really know what you're doing, or you have to be willing to spend a bunch of money to run that class. So a lot of people have eased back to Pro 275. But I think that whether you're in Pro 275 or RVW, you're going to find out that the level that everybody's at is going to be, I mean, it's still going to be a professional level, either class.
I buy that for $1. Like that, like you said, even at a 12 or 16 car field, people seem to like, they forget back in the days of drag racing, what was match racing, you had I remember growing up, quick 16 fields of like, at the time, I guess to be pro mod cars or door cars and stuff like that. And that was the ooh and off factor. It was the fastest car on the property. Not everybody could do it, but those guys would come in. But guess what? When they called quick 16 in the water box, everybody was running to the fence to see it. And I think you could be right there.
And here's the deal. If you have 8, I mean, you look at the big dog races and stuff like that, where, you know, even the pro mods, you know, 8 car fields, it doesn't matter. If you have Stevie Jackson and you have Alex Laughlin, or, you know, you have Marcus Burt, or you have J.R. Gray, it doesn't matter. Those 8, 10, 12, 16 people are going to draw. It's just going to be a big draw. It's just the way that it is, you know. And I mean, here's the thing. When I left the button, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, you look at last night's deal, you know, J.R. Gray was on the top of the roof, you know, sliding around over there. So you're going to have those guys that where, yeah, Pro 275 is cool. It's an awesome class. I love it. But you're still going to have, you know, when somebody calls RVW, they're going to drop their hot dogs, their Cokes, whatever they got to do, shove the baby strollers out of the way. They're coming in there to find out what's going on. You know what I mean? That's just the way that things are going to be, no matter what.
That's how our VIP people in the tent know when RVW is coming up.
Yeah,
because all of a sudden everybody just leaves the tent.
There'll be 0 people. You could have 100 people in there getting food. They call Radial versus the World, the tent's empty. That's just the way it is.
It is.
Yeah, and that's because it's going to play into my next question is, you know, the alleged death of Outlaw 10-5 used to be the Outlaw 10-5 Freak Show. You know, what's your take on Outlaw 10-5 kind of allegedly dying off or whatnot? You know, is that something that Duck
Well,
Nostradamus saw coming,
well,
or what? What do you think?
well, here's the deal with that. They made a couple mistakes, a couple bad mistakes. And even the racers had called me at the time. They said, you know, what do you think about, you know, Cecil's changing the rules are going to allow in a radial tire? And I told them, do not do it. You guys, you know, as much as I like to pick on them and play around with them, 10-5 is a good fun class, but you have to keep it 10-5. You know, why would you allow, you know, I'm not trying to beat up on it. I'm just saying, why would you allow in a more dominant tire? You had Outlaw 10-5. You have a 33-10-5W. Let those guys have a great time. Keep running that deal. And it would still be going today. Once they allowed in the radial tire, which I don't even know why, except for maybe to try to prove me wrong. Why would we even do that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know how to explain it. But anyway, they called Outlaw 10-5 for a reason. They should have stuck with a 33-10-5. I think it's too late to go back now, because I think also people find out, and it's just the way of a racer. You put on a tire, you go faster. You don't want to go backwards. You know what I mean? And so, you know, it kind of sucks, because I think it was a great class, even though I harassed them, you know, about the slick tires and all that. It was a great class, but, you know, I'm happy to also see Pro 275, you know, come in there. They're going to start running Pro 275. I think everybody's going to have a wonderful time, you know, playing around with Pro 275. So you know, it's been around for a long time, but everything has its ups and downs. And, you know, maybe it's not a bad thing. You know, maybe it's time. I think it's a lot safer on a radial tire than on a slick is. So, I mean, I really, I don't really see a problem with it. I think that they should have never allowed a radial in there, though.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of, I always wondered about that. And, you know, especially we like you said, when you see the writing on the wall, and you know, it's like watching the movie Titanic. You know, the damn boat's going to hit the iceberg. You know, this is going to happen, kids.
Yeah.
Yet we still drove the boat into the iceberg.
Yeah,
and I don't get it.
Yeah, whoever, that captain was drunk or whatever when they allowed that radial in, just like driving that boat. But, you know, then people, when they want to call and blame me, oh, you killed Outlaw 10-5. But Outlaw 10-5, they all have its own little class. Like, you can still run Outlaw 10-5 today and have a great little deal. Let me tell you the problem with it. Outlaw 10-5 was ran at one track. That's the problem with it. So Mo Hall and Brian Chen and all these guys, they want to come down and play in South Georgia or Orlando or Braden or wherever they want to go to. And the problem is, if you don't really have anywhere else to run that class, it's kind of probably better for these guys that want to travel to be able to have another class anyway. Now, with Pro 275, they can go run pretty much anywhere in the country.
Yeah, that's true. And it's that kind of leads into to the next question we talked about in the pre-call with Pro 275, man. It's that class is taken off like wildfire. And I kind of myself saw, as you were kind of introducing it, I'm like, this is going to be something interesting here, because this is going to take a lot of guys and it's going to humble them quickly. But at the same time, I hate to say, you got to keep the chains on the beast, because then it's going to turn into a radial versus the world. And, you know, the $232 question is, are you going to try to keep it under control with chassis and not let it completely turn into a crazy budget class?
Well, I'll still okay, a couple points to this question I want to answer so we're very clear.
Point away.
Okay. Radial versus the world didn't get out of control because of the chassis. I'm gonna lay this out here for you. It got out of control because of 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 horsepower. Okay. The chassis, okay, maybe the car doesn't go down the track every pass, or maybe instead of a 50 or 51, they go 52 or 53. Okay. It's not really that huge of a difference, the actual chassis part of it. It's really not. The tire kept getting better from Mickey Thompson, and you keep allowing more power and more power and more power. You know, if you take a Pro Mod chassis, or you take a regular, whatever they want to call them, and put them out there, and you both have 1,500 horsepower, those cars are going to be within one number of each other, guaranteed. But obviously the more power and the more power. And then don't get me wrong, there is a little bit of an advantage depending on track conditions. If the track is completely perfect, I don't think it matters. When it's not, and I'm not saying they would go 50 flat, but they would definitely be within a couple numbers of that, okay? But the tires being good and the horsepower, I've always said it. If you keep making more, look at the turbos. You know, back in the day, you make 1,500. Now you make 5,500. You know what I mean? So there's a difference. So I don't really blame everything on the chassis. I'm hoping with Pro 2, that being said, I want all the cars to look like real cars in Pro 275, okay? But here's the thing that it's not a simple thing, okay? Everybody says, oh, no pro mod this, no pro mod that. Okay, well, what do you consider a pro mod, okay? A pro mod to me has always been the elite all-out car, supposedly, big tires on it, wheelie bars, whatever. I don't actually consider, I think you take the baddest pro mod in the country, the baddest one, give me the baddest one that there is, and I bet you I can put a car next to it with no wheelie bars on a street tire, a radial tire, and my radial tire car will outrun the baddest pro mod in the country. If you give me the best track on the right lane, give them the best track they want on the left lane, the radial. So is it really a pro modification? Like, is that the pro mod? What are you calling a pro mod? You see what I'm saying? Is it just the body? Is it the chassis? Are you saying wheelie bars? Like, what do you consider a pro mod, I guess would be my question to everybody. What's a pro mod to you?
Pro mod to me is a car that never came off an assembly line. You know, if you graft a VIN-tagged car onto a safe chassis and you add some frame rails and kind of like the way that we've built cars before and some of these cars are built and they look like real cars, then yes, that to me is not like a pro mod like you'd see running like in the PDRA or something like that. It's got not a stretched wheelbase. A certain percentage of the car shouldn't be a composite material. It needs to be steel.
But if you had the same chassis, like take Stevie Jackson, because he has a long wheelbase car, okay? He told me he can take his same body, pull it, rip it completely off, take a steel bodied car and stick it right on top of his frame that they have. So if it has a complete steel body on top of it, is it a pro mod then, or is it not a pro mod? You see what I'm saying? It's just not easy. People want me to say, get rid of the pro mods. Pro 275 is going to be this great thing, okay? If somebody wants to bring a steel body pro mod, basically, plus or minus 1 inch, 2 inches, whatever you want to say, it's still going to be the same car. It's just going to look like a real car. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, it's a tricky slope. People don't understand that it is not like, for this level of racing, it is not a black or white kind of cut deal.
It's not a simple thing.
Black,
people
white, and then it's
people want me to get rid of the pro mods. Okay, well, a pro mod, to me, a pro mod looking like Scotty G's car. Okay, the tire up inside, the top of the wheel well, all that. But I'm just saying they go straight back to this. They go, okay, well, that to have it certified to get my SFI certification, I got to have this frame rail, that frame rail. That's the way it always starts, Brian. It's the same crap with all the racers, all the chassis guys. It's the same deal. It's like back in the day, stock suspension, but they have 14 holes on the rear end housing. Well, that's not stock suspension. Stock suspension to me, the original hole that came in the car in the front, you can beef it up. You can't move the location of it. And on the rear end housing, same thing. Stock rear end housing. Once you go to Fab 9s and 14 holes and you look at McCamus and he's got sliding 4-link brackets and 42 million adjustable spots, well, obviously that's not stock suspension anymore.
I want to know where some of these guys got these stock suspension Mustangs that had all those adjustable extra holes in them and stuff like that. What? Was that a dealership option? How'd you get that, man?
I never saw it.
I keep hearing the same thing. It was the same deal with Brad Edwards. Everybody wants a stock suspension deal and a 100-pound weight brake, but they got a full pro mod floater rear end in the car, but they want a 100-pound weight brake.
If you ever want to make a class racer that isn't a class that has like certain like suspension rules, get really kind of antsy and itchy real quick, ask him, hey, you mind if I take a look under there, maybe take a couple pictures for an article? Those guys freak out in a hurry. Trust me.
Oh, I had a deal where somebody sent me some pictures. Next thing I know, Bruder Brothers was going to sue the guy for coming in the shop, taking a picture of the suspension underneath the car. So, I mean, it's crazy stuff, man. It really is. I mean, yes, do I want Pro 275 to all look? I'm hoping I want them to look all like real cars, yes. I'm hoping that maybe one day we're going to actually have a tire, which I talk to Proline all the time, and I'm not just throwing Proline, but I talked to Patrick Barnhill, to Steve Petty. I talked to everybody. Does this tire have a limit? Because that's what I'm looking for, Brian. I want that tire, and they're telling me, there are certain points in the racetrack that tire does have a limit at this point. So what I'm hoping is that, we get the weights close, you know what I mean? Get the cars obviously looking as good as we can, like stock appearing cars. And then hopefully let that tire hold that thing back between the 60 and the 330. And I think we're going to have a good class, Brian. I think 4 or 5 years of some very good 30, 40, 50, 60 car fields of Pro 275. Everybody's pumped up about it. I thought RBW would have been gone 2 or 3 years ago.
We talked about this.
I did an interview. I forget her name. I can't think. I did an interview 4 or 5 years ago talking about how Pro 275 would be at the top and RBW would be down within a year or two. And honestly, RBW has really gone against everything I thought, and it has really kept up there because I think people, they want to know, like, man, these crazy guys in this RBW deal, and now Pro 275 is right behind them, and they're both great classes.
To your point about finding the limit of the tire, and again, this is like drag racing nerd, when you pay attention to a lot of stuff when you're really into racing. And when I was talking with Mark Mickey about, making the switch to Pro 275, and one of the things he said is, man, this tire is kicking our ass between certain spots on the track. And I was like, oh, really? So I happened to go out and watch a session of Pro 275, and you could see, man, they're going to be on a pass, then all of a sudden just rips the tire off randomly. And it's that knife edge of trying to balance that horsepower on that tire that is not easy.
Well, and that was, you remember back in the day, this was a little bit before Sweetheart's time and everything, but you remember back where the BF Goodrich stuff, and with the BFG, that's what I think we had that deal where there was that limits, you know what I mean? And it's like, since Mickey Thompson's come out with all these great tires, we haven't really found these limits like what you're talking about, So with the 275, it is finicky. It's a lot more finicky. And I'm hoping, man, if we could just keep it, if we could keep that thing 69, 70, 71 in that range and slower, Brian, I think we could have an awesome class for the next 4 or 5 years. But we can't start seeing them go
like Radial versus the world, taking off.
Bottom 60s or something like that, because that's not going to really work out for what we're trying to do.
You just kind of maybe think of another interesting question here. Look at this, you talked about that previous interview. It kind of predicted the future a little bit more. And now you're talking about Pro 275 and the future of it. What do you think the general future of radial racing is going to be across the board with all these classes? Because you got X275 cars now that can literally qualify for LDR, which is interesting and terrifying at the same time. Where do you see this train going, man?
I think that they I can't think of the word. They need their own identity, I guess. Like each class, like I think Radial versus the world, you're going to have 40s and 50s, okay? I think with Pro 275, you need the high 60s and 70s. The problem is that they got is the LDR and the X275 and all that. They got to make sure that there's some numbers separated. We don't need every class to run this right. We don't need every class to run the same number. You know what I'm saying? We don't want every class to go 470, 470, 470, 470. We need different classes. And with that comes, different amounts of money that these racers are spending. Ultra Street now, you look at it, they're going 450s. That's pretty freaking fast, man. I had a Pro Mod back in the day. Don't tell anybody. But that thing only went 440s and 450s. With a 600-inch motor, these guys are out there with small blocks and stuff, and or a big block with one kit. Like it's crazy how fast, and that goes again. take out and another thing is like, and he doesn't get enough credit, but Joe Rivera from Pro Torque, he actually is the one in 2010 that actually spun this thing upside down. You know, when they came out there racing 2010, 2011, you know, all these lockup converters and all this different stuff started coming about. I mean, you start looking at mile per hour difference, you know, they're starting to actually be able to put down all this power and all that. So, I mean, I think that, again, the technology too, Brian, is really putting us down there how fast these guys are going.
Rules need to be tight so each class can have their own identity.
Own identity. I think each class needs their own identity, man.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like you said, it's technology, and racers are some of the craftiest people on earth, that they will look at a set of rules and they'll be like, well, how can I manipulate this? Where's like Stephanie made that Stephanie's little graph earlier, that spot right there. That right there should be the hand signal for shenanigans with racers right there. They go for
and honestly, Brian, not to beat up on them, but that wears us out really bad. I mean, that makes me sometimes not want to keep promoting because they won't do what's in the best interest of the sport. Like, we're the principals, okay? And they're like the teenager that has to go try out new drugs or new whatever. They won't do the right thing. Not all of them, but you have some that they just, no matter what, you can't get it through their head that in the best interest of the class and the best interest of the sport, not to do it. And it really wears on me bad. It really does. It's very frustrating. And then when you try to do the right thing, Brian, that's when then I look like, you know, the a-hole, keeping it PG-13. You know, that's when I look like the bad person. You know, we look like the bad people because we're trying to do what we know is right. Right. Well,
they come to me.
Yeah, she plays the good cop, and I'm the bad cop. But and I'd like to say something about Pro 275 real quick. And I don't mind, like, I'm not trying to say I'm the end-all, be-all, but what I am saying is if anybody's going to use our Pro 275 rules, then they need to use them to the right down to whatever we decide to do, okay? If not, they need to call it something else, Brian. They need to come up with their own thing. Call it extreme, call it whatever they want to. But for us, and the amount of time and effort that we put into it, if there's going to be a record, ET, mile per hour, whatever it is, we want to know that we can go on there and keep it, you know, uniform. We want to know, okay, hey, Pro 275, yeah, they went up to whatever. They went up to Cecil and they went this fast. They went down to Braden and they went to Orlando. Wherever they go to, we just want to make sure. We don't care about anybody using Pro 275 or RBW. We just want them to follow the rules. And if something needs to be changed, they can't all do the hard decisions, Brian. They got too many friends. They got too many people sponsoring stuff. Nobody wants to go in and do the hard decision. I have to be that person that looks like I'm the idiot. I'm the guy that they want to come beat up. But I'm okay with that because it needs to be done to keep it in line. So I just want to say, anybody watching this, more than welcome to use anything. Please follow it down to the letter, though.
So we can trust wherever those are running, the numbers that come to us are accurate. So the rules can stay accurate.
Yes.
Well, yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, you know, as rule makers, you know, a lot of people don't realize John Sears is actually only 22 years old, but promoting X275 has caused him to age that much.
70 more years.
But all joking aside, John's got a tough job trying to wrangle that monster. And, you know, take for that example that someone says they're having an X275 race. They ain't using X275 rules. And he says, man, I got to drop the hammer on this combo because these guys are way out there. Well, guess what? Someone not using the generally accepted accounting principle rules of X275 has now completely screwed the pooch on the whole class.
Absolutely. And I always feel bad for John when that happens. John has a tough job. And sometimes he's another one that he knows the right thing to do, but he gets scared sometimes because he doesn't want to hurt feelings. And then when he does do the right thing, then you got another track that goes, well, we're going to do X275, but we're going to change this, this, and this, and this. Then it's not X275 anymore. You understand what I'm saying? They shouldn't use X275. Like John's put however much time in X275. These guys, and no offense to track owners and stuff, but a lot of these guys, They open up the thing. They want to use RBW. They want to use Pro 275. They want to use X275. But then when it comes down to it, they got friends. And here's the thing, man. All these racers, and I know because I get them all the time, this guy calls up. Well, by the time you got the phone, you're wanting to change the rules for him. And it's not the right thing to do. These guys that call up these track owners and get them to change rules, and, they start feeling bad for people. You can't do that. What's right is right. We have that under control. If you're going to open up your track, you're going to call it something, run by our rules, or don't do it. Make up your own stuff. But you can't hurt 40 other racers because you got a friend over here that he's so slow, he's slower than a snail with a limp, but you want to help him out. And you just can't, you can't
separate that friendship and what's the best interest for the sport.
And if any sponsor ever calls me up and says anything about changing the rules for sponsorship, they can just go ahead and have that check overnighted right back to them, because we're not playing that game either.
No, you got to keep it fair. And, kind of off of that as well, your DXP street class, or as we might have to call it, the Martin Conley Memorial class, because he pretty much has taken that class over. But you know what? It's because that team, those guys work hard. But, we can cover that in a little bit more. But, what are your feelings on that so far? Are you satisfied where that class has gone?
Well,
you have to tweak it?
I'm not satisfied at all. And I'm going to be honest with you, I hate blaming the COVID for everything. But, I was just so pumped up about this DXP street, right? I went out there, boom, I had everything going, everything. And then after that race, I wanted to be able to take a look at everything, figure out what I needed to do to be able to keep this thing a little bit slower than what it was going. And right after we left there, Brian, boom, COVID hit. And it was very tough for me. I don't like canceling or postponing anything, no matter what. The officials came in, we had the mayor involved and all that stuff, and they wanted us to cancel that Sweet 16. Well, after the postponing the Sweet 16 deal, all the COVID deals going on, everybody's freaking out. And honestly, I had to blame it on myself for not getting out there and really doing what I wanted to. I have a great idea for DXP Street. I honestly do, for what I want to do. And I'll go ahead and lay it out to you right now. And I may still do this before the next race. So before people go out and buy tech cards, I would like personally, because I don't like where it's at, okay, I want to slow it down. I would like for everybody to rules stay exactly the same, but I want to have it where it is a right off a Summit or right out of Jags, a Holley 600 back carburetor put on it. That's the only thing you can run. This part number, a Holley 600 back carburetor. I think that may put me where I want it to ET-wise, and for people who built some exotic deal more than what I wanted, and they have these extra horsepower, I think that will take it back to where I want it to go to. Now, they might not like it, whatever, but I would like to see an all-out car, and then on a 600 back carburetor, I would like to see what the difference is in that and how much it slows it down. Because I need that class to have its own identity, and I want to see that thing run more like 520s is what I'm looking for.
Oh, yeah. The concept is a great idea for sure. But again, it rolls back to drag racers being big, dumb animals that want to go as fast as possible. And they will find a way to somehow taunt rules makers. And, like you said, it's a bad, interesting problem to have when those guys lit up the boards like that.
Yeah. What do you think if we took away the car, if they had to run a out of the box 600 vacuum secondary carburetor, how much power will it take away?
I am not an expert in that area, but considering how much I know can be done to a carburetor in that area with that kind of setup and engine, that's going to put a divot in the fairway on what they can do.
I would like to see it. I really think, and they're not very much money, I like to have some stock ones there. And then, and I want to get this to a certain point. I had some people at the car show ask me about it. They're like, man, we want to run this class, but we already see it. It seems like it's got out of hand. I'm thinking about coming out here real soon, swapping that deal, leaving it just like it is, but with a 600 back carburetor, cannot be touched, modified, anything. It has to be just like it came out of the box, and I would like to see what they would run. and if it slows it back down to 5:20s or whatever, then 5:30. I don't know. I like to see it.
The intention of the class was to go as fast as
no, but they all
what you're saying, even though they all want to be that person.
But I think that I think if you take the fuel away from it, I think we can still get it back to where we might want to be. I'm fixing to go over that deal. There are probably some unhappy people, but I really do want to try it at one race with a 600 vac carburetor. I'd commit to running like 3 races or something with it. That way no one's buying a $300 carburetor. But I really think that it would help out the slower teams.
I used to always joke when I would help with Nitro RC car races that if people aren't bitching about what we're doing online, then we're not doing it right. One way or another, like people are always going to complain. That's just a natural fact. And if they ain't complaining, they ain't paying attention. So, we can kind of roll that into something a little bit here that I just want to know from my own personal level, when are we going to see the old school Donald Linko gym videos? We need to see those once again.
Okay, so all right. So I've been thinking about this a lot because I don't know if you've noticed over the years, we would do a whole bunch, okay? And then at certain times we would stop for a while and then we'd come back because I didn't want it to be the same to where people get tired of it. It's funny that you say this because I had just got with Linko about, do you ever remember watching the ORTC Jeopardy videos or no?
I don't remember those, no. I just remember the first one I ever watched was just, it's Linko time. I'm like, oh, this guy seems like he's serious. I want to watch this.
Hey, listen, there are some fun times doing those too. And I'd love to get back into it. So anyway, the Jeopardy board, we'd have up, it was crazy. Like all the categories. If you get a chance, go just Google it, the ORTC Jeopardy. And so you'd have all the Jeopardy. We'd have all the categories up on the top and all that kind of jazz. And it was always this awesome, of course, it was always just off the wall stuff. But the last question was always something that would get us in some serious trouble. I mean, like, it's some shit you don't even want to talk about, right? So I would hit my buzzer, because we had it set up with the easy button. So I'd hit my easy button thing, and I'd be like, what is? And then that would be the end of the show each time, right? To keep us from getting, like, really in trouble. And so it was awesome, man. But I just called him about resetting up setting up our thing for it. So you may see some stuff coming up.
Oh, it'd be outstanding. It's like it reminds me so much of like the old school WWF promos where it's just like it's there. There is no compromise. It's like it's entertainment. And what I think, Linko needs to start his own YouTube channel where, you have those guys that like go to random places and they ask people questions, He just needs to go and he needs to take it to the next level. He needs to take Chevelle Robb with him and they need to they need to just go ask people questions. Like that is like million hit YouTube videos because you just want to see what, like, not only what they are going to say, how are normal people going to interact with these two?
Yeah, listen, Jimmy's very good. When he would do that from the hip, we do the from the hip with Linko, Jim. And it was really fun times, man. I'll tell you the real problem is that everybody has real lives now. That's the problem. Jimmy mowing 200 or 300 yards a week. He's got 2 gyms, fitness gyms that are opened up. I'm over here in Madeira. It's just so much to be able to put it together and take the time to go do everything. We always talk about how much money that we could probably really make if we didn't have real lives. You know what I mean? If we just went out doing the stuff that you're talking about, how awesome and fun that it would be, though.
Yeah, that whole YouTube thing, man, there's so much entertaining content that you guys could terrorize the general public with, not just racers, just the general public that people would watch. It would be amazing. And it's funny, whenever we have Linko help out on the live feed interview stuff, it's always like, you say a small prayer, like, all right, hopefully he's going to behave. Hopefully. And you just keep doing it.
You never know.
Yeah, I honestly really would I really want Lenko to do, if we didn't have so much other stuff going on at the race and I could have Lenko just doing the interviews, I think that we could definitely help produce something that is just off the chart. You know what I mean? Good. You know, I'd love to go do them myself too, have Lenko do some, because there's things that me and him know about. Like, we'd be calling out all this bull crap that they come up with, you know, these racers and all this stuff, the scene, behind the scenes stuff. It would be phenomenal for us to go, which the problem is that nobody else really knows about it that's working with the camera. So they won't just go in there, you know, after Stevie Jackson or David Reese or whoever. Like, there's so many things that we know that to call them out on.
Well, that's why at COVID 8 and at Magic 8, it was really nice because we could use Lenko, and he was the main guy. He was the main interviewer, and he was behind them in the staging lanes, in the pits after and it was perfect. It was really entertaining. I don't know if you got to see or watch any of it from COVID and Magic, but it was phenomenal.
What's funny is a lot of people don't realize what it's like when you've got to do those interviews in different capacities, especially when it's live. Like a lot of the stuff I did at Lights Out 11, I'd never done anything like that before. And you do this live and it's like, you never quite know what direction stuff's going to go. And like, you got to roll with it. And the thing is that I talked with a few of the NHRA guys about this and I asked for some advice about doing on camera stuff. Mm-hmm. And they said, you know, have fun, but always remember to be professional no matter what happens. Enter Marcus Burt. And I go to interview him, and he busts out that 600 cubic inch nitrous engine stuff and all this. And I'm interviewing him, and I'm like, just keep it professional, Brian. Don't just let him go with it. Just let him go with it. I'm like, you know what? Just we'll have fun. We'll let it go. Put it up online. About a month or so later, I'm getting messages from friends saying, man, people are busting your balls about this. I'm like, what? I go, you know, on Facebook, on social media, and people are like, look at this idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just letting Marcus go. And I'm like, that's the point. You know, it's not a good interview when I go, you're a liar. That turns out horrible, right? You know?
Yeah.
You got to play it back and forth with them.
Yeah, no, it is funny because I did hear stuff like that too. They're like, yeah, the guy didn't even know what size this was or that was. And I'm like, man, these people are just out of their minds, man. So
you roll with it, go with it. I'm like, yeah, cooling the converter with nitrous. That sounds like the next big thing, dude. Right on. It's all about entertaining. And, you know, that's something that, you know, we can now kind of, I think, go into more of the unscripted fun question portion here. And as COVID has really, I think, changed a lot of industries. And I think in the drag racing industry, it's pointed something out. We need to focus back on the entertainment side of things for the fans, not only for what they watch online, but in person. You know, what are your thoughts on that? Is that something we need to ramp up again and make it more of a traveling show of fun?
That's what
I think so.
That's what we think, you know.
People are too serious. And their lives have been put on hold for so long. They need some sort of real entertainment and fun back into their lives because everything's so rigid.
I mean, I've always liked the entertainment part of it, and I've always had fun, you know, doing the entertainment part of it. And I feel like sometimes that some of the shows like that we do get so big, and it just, I don't know, it takes the fun out of it for me sometimes. You know, I want to have it where, you know, yes, I think that we do need to ramp up, you know, on the good times, you know, and the fun, besides the drag racing part of it. Like the last deal, you know, like for the kids and stuff, like she did a whole thing for all the trick or treats and all the Halloween thing and all the Halloween costume stuff.
Vendor Row had it all set up. Even the racers had their rigs all done up in Halloween. They were even the racers were dressed up in costume so that I thought I'd have 20, 30 kids. I think there was 150 kids out there in costumes. Yeah, I'm handing out money and awards and different things, and the parents that were out there participating with their children. It made me right then and there know that I don't care how busy I get at Lights Out. I don't care what happens. We're bringing that back. We're going to have something else because it needs to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I used to love the all of the little races that we did with
Big
all
tire
the big wheel races and all that kind of stuff. And we had a lot of fun with all that.
The other thing that I think is also at larger events that is completely unutilized, there's actually two things and they play hand in hand, is a t-shirt cannon or a wireless microphone to give away free stuff. Because you look at like what Jason Logan does with the NHRA and kind of like how he gives stuff away, or even seen it up at the World Cup before with Fabian, and like when they had some big downtime, they'd have people doing like these crazy races and everything else. It's about finding a way to entertain the people, I think, that are there, that they don't see the tractors. They want to see what this idiot's going to do to get a free t-shirt.
Right.
And Brian Loans actually came up with some other stuff, and he really has hit the nail on the head. I think also I'm tired of this whole tractor deal. You know what I'm saying? I think we need to have a certain amount of time, however many minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and that's it. You know what I mean? I think people get sick and tired. Yeah, you want to see the awesome numbers and all that deal, but we got to find a happy medium in there somewhere. All this deal where I don't want to sit around for 30, 40 minutes in between classes and stuff like that. I want to get something going on. I want to get rid of some of the tractor stuff. I really do. I know all these guys, everybody wants to try to they set new world records and all that. But honestly, we need to slow down on some of that deal and let these fans see more cars going on the racetrack.
If only someone invented a race where it was only a limited amount of cars and they got all these hits and the track was, oh wait, that's a Sweet 16.
Yeah.
That is the event where that's expected.
Right.
Where you could you could load up the big load. But I think what you just said there is one of the reasons why, like, I hear on my end why people say, well, I don't like radial racing because of the this, that, and the other. Well, you know what? I don't see a negative there. I see a positive. I see forcing tuners and racers to learn how to deal with adverse conditions to get these cars down the track, and you remove a certain level of that dependency on horsepower.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. The problem is that you get some of these racers and they're so hell bent on, they have to, we got to go down the track. Oh, they're not doing, what's wrong with the track? They want to get online, start beating everybody up. Oh, the track's not right, this, that. And then you get into all that whole drama on Facebook and all this crap. When honestly, that's what they should be racing. Give them a good track. Don't get me wrong. Make it nice and safe. Make it a good track, but not, there's too many racers and too many crybabies out there, honest to God, that if it's not just this perfect track condition, then they want to get on there and start bitching about everything, dude. And it's ridiculous.
Everybody becomes a track professional.
Yeah,
everybody's a track professional.
It's funny because, up around here, up north, in Ohio, in the Midwest, a lot of times we used to not get the best radio prep for a weekly or monthly series. So we had to learn how to get down a junk track, which is awesome when you go to a big event and the track might not be there, because guess what? We're going to go to A to B. The flip side of that is when you go to a big event and the track's awesome, you're like, I don't know how much I can turn this thing up. You kind of run into an issue where you don't know how to necessarily to deal with it. But I think it would be very interesting to see how some of these high-paid tuners and racers, how they would deal with not having the best track all the time.
Because, don't get me wrong, these guys take stuff to the next level. But honestly, is that really the all-out tuner? Or would the tuner be a guy that's got to get down a mediocre track? You know what I'm saying? Some guy can just throw every bit of power that they can to it because the track is that perfect. Well, hell, give me the laptop. I could probably do that. You know what I'm saying? But give them something to where you actually have to work for it a little bit, And I'm not saying make it any kind of junk deal. I'm just saying I don't think these guys have to have 30 minutes worth of prep to send 8 cars down it. It seems to be ridiculous at this point.
Realistic and reasonable prep, where if you know how to get a car down the track, you're going to get it down the track, but you're not going to be able to, turn it to 11 and rip the knob off.
Right. The Sweet 16, yeah, that's great. With 30 minutes in, everybody go to the VIP tent, get something to eat, okay, we're track prepped up, we're ready to go. You know what I mean? That's fine. But when you have 4, 5, 6, 10,000 people in the stands, they shouldn't have to wait 30, 35 minutes worth of the tractor going up and down so we can send 8 cars down the racetrack. That's ridiculous.
You can't get through 350 cars.
No.
Which a lot of times that's what you've got when you have an event that size is 350, 375 cars. And you can't put that much time in between because then you're never going to get – then that's when they start complaining because they're not getting to qualify. And then it just kind of trickles like a domino effect all the way.
Yeah, it's amazing, you know. I get to go to so many different events, and you see how different events go and how they shove cars down the track. And like you said, track prep can really like knock that rhythm down. What's crazy is, you know, out at the 4-wide tracks where they have the slick tire and the radial prep lanes, that's wild because literally the only downtime is when the track crew's got to wander over to the other set of lanes and they flip it over there and they load the lane, you know, load those lanes up with cars. And then
I think if we could take out some of the track prep egos out of this deal, that things would get a lot better. But the problem is we got the internet, so everybody has this ego that they have to have. Everybody has to try to go for the record. See, you can't just have a good race. Like, why can't we just have a race where every Radial versus the World car goes 360, 361, 362, 363? You know, or whatever the class would be. We don't have to go 352, 351, 350 every time, every race out there. You know what I mean? I mean, I used to go all the time. All I was worried about was trying to go as fast as the guy that was in front of me, you know, or the guy beside me, or whatever. It didn't matter if I was setting new world records. These guys want to go out there, and every time they want to go after their personal best. And then when it doesn't happen, they want to go on the internet and bash everybody because it didn't happen.
Kind of changing directions a little bit. You know, we're all about having fun on the Dragzine podcast, and it's all about the guests. It's all about what you guys have to say because no one could give 2 hoots about my stupid stories.
I care about you, baby.
I appreciate that. I feel that. I feel that right here in my hearts.
Right there?
Right here. Right here.
Okay.
And
not down lower.
No. That's
right here.
Just right here.
Okay, I got you.
Now, it's always fun to hear stories. I'm going to put you guys on the spot. We'll start with you, Stephanie.
Oh.
You've been around this for a little while. You know, we can redact.
I thought that's where he was going too.
We can redact names to a certain point. At any drag racing event, DX, it could be any event. What is the one thing you see where it's like, that's kind of wild? It could be something on the track. It could be a spectator doing something crazy. I mean, what's something where you literally stop and you stop mid-conversation. You go, whoa, what's going on over here?
You know, there's a lot of things. There really is. But the one thing that really, really gets me, and I think that's why I came up with the contest at Halloween, the toe tapper contest. And I call them the toe tappers. Or whatever, the liner uppers. They don't even have a name, but they're out there and they're just tapping their feet on that glue. And I'm like, dude, we just prepped the track. You're taking all the glue and putting it on your shoe. You know, see them, and that's why they're the toe tappers. They're out there tap dancing in the middle of the track, lining everybody up, and I know they do it and they have their own reasons, but I'm telling you, it stops me in mid-sentence because some of the motions that they do, like some of them get all down in there and then they're tapping their – I mean, I couldn't even demonstrate some of the stuff that you see. There's a lot out there that makes me stop. But that right there, I'm telling you, every race, and it's not just ours. It's all even the no time races we've gone to, any of them. It's comical. It is. And they're all
the button pushers are good too.
Button pushers are good too.
I mean, have you seen the stretch on some of them guys?
They're all like,
I mean, that car can be in the first beam, or it can be actually about 10 foot back, it seems like. And that guy must be like Stretch Armstrong because he's got there's some technique behind that button pusher. I'm just telling you.
I don't know. That has to be the top. And then when they get stuck in the glue because of their toe tapping too much, and then they're losing their shoes, they're losing their socks.
All right, Brian's trying to talk. Go ahead.
That's got to be.
She won't ever be quiet. Just go ahead and keep going.
Again, it's funny being on the media side of things. You know, I crew too, and you're on that side of things, and I see the same things where people do the starting line of these strange rituals, and I'm like, I get it, but it's like at the same time, it's like that's a lot of wasted effort.
Yeah.
And like you said, the guys that are turning on the cars, you know, turning on the data computers. I've seen some of those dudes. I'm worried for their safety because they're waiting till like the last second. I'm like, dude,
They're not even supposed to be touching the car once it's in the beams. But I see them as the guy's going up on the tranny brake. The guy's going to reach in there with the button.
Yeah, I'm like, man, if something bad happens here, and you know, you get your wristwatch stuck on a wing strut, that dude lets go of the button. They're going to be calling you. They're going to be calling you one hand Timmy. It's not going to be good.
It's going to be all hands on deck. Get it?
Literally. Same question for you, Donald. What are some things, or one thing where you're just like,
well, I have to be in a different situation because when I'm in the tower, I want to be a perfectionist when it comes to trying to have these people run the race. So I'm going to go with that just drives me completely freaking out of control is how you can have a machine that's not been used the entire day, that's supposed to be completely full of fuel and stuff, but we can't make it 300 foot down the racetrack before it runs out of propane or diesel or gas to get down to the problem. You know what I mean? Like if you have an oil down at 300 foot and the Zamboni can only make it 200 feet before it runs out of propane on something that's supposed to be completely full, to me, like that's the ultimate thing for me is to watch it. Like I was at a Mockley one time and the guy flips over, right? Here comes the ambulance. The ambulance makes it about 150 foot before it shuts off, and the guy has to get out and outrun the ambulance to get to the thing. So you let it sit, and I understand they're supposed to let them sit there and run, but if you let something sit there and run so much to where there's absolutely no fuel in it, it's not going to do any good when it comes time to go get the guy. Let me assure you of that.
You have defeated the purpose, sir. You have defeated the purpose.
That's right. I mean, the epic fail was when the guy had to grab his bag out of the ambulance and run over to the guy because the ambulance was out of gas out there. So to me, believe me, I've seen the racers with some crazy things. But for me, I'm always trying to keep the track stuff running the whole time. So for me, it's like my most important thing is to make sure everything is full. But I've already seen it happen at several different places where you could have a 30-gallon propane tank on the back of it, and we can't make it 300 feet down to the bottom.
I worry about his health sometimes during these situations because he looks like he's going to stroke out. He's about ready to go through the glass of the tower at these. He is.
Fun fact: when you're like watching the live feed and the mics are hot, you can hear the meltdowns happening in the background.
I always wondered if you could.
Oh, you can hear them. And what's funny is, on Flow Racing, I was watching some dirt track racing. It was like a small dirt track in Indiana. And the race control guy is in the booth along with, the announcers. They were right there. The announcers are talking about, so-and-so just did this and, they got a caution out. And you hear the race controller that's, on the racers in the car's radios, the only people, he goes, "Come on, guys, it's really not that hard." Like he's scolding these guys.
That's me.
That is, well, if he said he can hear us, man.
Yeah, you can. Some of the things sometimes, if you're paying enough attention, you'll hear it in the background. You'll go, "Oh, like someone's in trouble at school." And if you really want to hear some good stuff too, if you watch NHRA.TV, their deal, there is some stuff that definitely slips through that the top end mic is hot. People are using words that rhyme with duck and truck, and they don't realize that it's like, yeah, man, that was a lucky run, let me tell you. And you might not be able to hear it over the PA, but I'm sitting here typing away on my work, and I'm like, what did they just say? Like,
one of those head turners.
I can guarantee you the hot mics in my tower definitely are not good because I'm going to tell you right now, there's some stuff that happens that I just want to
And Bobby Bennett's just slowly getting lower as he types.
Yeah, he just eases down.
He's got his own computer screen that he takes from the front, and he just hides behind.
He's got his headphones on, but I don't think he's got. I think he's really listening, but he pretends like he's got his headphones on the whole time.
He just doesn't want to have to be a witness in a court case or something like that. You know,
I'm telling you.
It does get serious up there sometimes.
And that's another side of the racing side of things that would again make it a great reality TV show, that people just don't see all of these different facets of everything that happens.
We've had animals. Brian Loans has the greatest story. His first time ever announcing for us, he's in there. You know, he's Mr. Professional, and we've got 4 dogs coming in the tower, like 5 kids building towers with boxes, and he's just like, "What is going on?" Okay, you know, because it is, and then you've got him yelling down at the other end,
but yeah, we got kids underneath it, like. We have a picture of Brian. He's with 3 other guys in HRA. They're all in their suits. Everybody's dressed up. They're on the mic. He couldn't make the race, so I sent him a picture of us. We got 3 dogs, 2 cats. We got the glitter competition going on.
There was one time a glitter thing going on. There's glitter everywhere.
And
Lee shirtless drinking whiskey, yelling through the mic. I mean,
that was
priceless.
I can't. There was we had 2 announcers that we can't mention their names.
No.
But we had these 2 announcers, right? And so they thought one of those deals where not the mic was hot, but the camera was hot. So we're on the way home from the Sweet 16, right? This was a couple years back. Yeah. Anyway, they got the Jack Daniels or whatever, and they're pouring it right in front of the camera. And they're just kind of like this in front of the camera, backing out. I was laughing so hard we almost crashed the truck.
We had to pull around the side of the road so we could watch it about 5 times.
It was so funny.
It was good.
I can tell you that some of the things when I've helped produce the live broadcast, when you get to see all the camera angles and you see things that they're not getting recorded, it's just being shown through the camera, where it's like, oh, that's bad. Like, do not go to that camera. And I'm not saying it's just like stuff on the starting line, stuff the scaffold camera catches, like spectators doing, we're like, do not go to 6. Do not go to 6.
I wonder if this is our races he's primarily talking about.
Oh, no. There is stuff that happens at every race. And there's stuff that I have pictures of from different races.
Well, that's what we should be showing.
That's what we need to see.
That'll bring the entertainment value right up into it.
It's just some of those things where it's like borderline, is there a felony happening? What's really going on here? And I have a lot of pictures where I could make some great memes and capture pictures of people in the industry where people would hate me forever.
Oh, I have one. I got to talk about it off air, but we have a guy that I had tons of photos of because he's coming up doing something with a car, but he's more hanging out with the girl in the water box.
Oh yeah.
So I was taking these real straight up pictures, and then I text them to him and be like, "Hey, bro, what's going on, man?" And so yeah, we have some real awesome stuff that goes on too that we catch from up there.
Yeah,
some things from the tower that people don't realize either.
No,
the eye in the sky, as we used to call it during football.
Eye in the sky, definitely.
My dad used to say, if we screwed up football and he was a coach, he'd say, "The eye in the sky don't lie, kids." And that's like, it reminds you that you're always on camera somewhere, and that, you learn that you keep your finger away from the nose and regions and things like that. And if you're eating, people are going to get pictures of that. It's brutal.
People eating too. That's pretty cool. Sleeping too on the job.
I'm going to tell you this though, back to the whole, like the mic deal, the hot mic, open mic deal. That's really the worst because I just go out of control. And next thing I know, I have some people text me and go, "Hey, man, that mic's hot." And then I'll look over. I'm like, "You got your mic on?" "No, that's off there." "Oh, yeah, that was on." Go to flip it off. I'm like, "Well, it's a little too late now."
Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah.
Well, Donald and Stephanie, our time here is coming to a close on the Dragzine Podcast, and I appreciate you coming down. You guys get to be my first guests on video that thank all your sponsors and tell people where to find you at. So I'll allow you now to become your inner John Force, and who to thank, where to thank, and where you can find you at, what's going on. So the floor is yours.
At racedxp.com, you'll find your classes, your rules. You'll find all the feeding from Facebook, feeds right to it. So you can even click and get onto our Facebook site, DuckX Productions. Vote.com/DuckX Productions is where you can get all of your tickets and pre-purchase your tech cards racers. We need to do that.
And the payouts. Don't forget about the payouts. We have the payouts on there.
Payouts are on there. All cash money handed right there in the winner's circle for the winner.
Well, basically, obviously my Facebook, DuckX Productions Facebook, but Race DXP has everything that they're looking for.
Absolutely.
As far as, current up-to-date rules, and all the sponsors are on there. I start thinking sponsors, but there's too many good people out there.
We'd upset somebody. So
if I leave somebody off, if I say something, I'll leave somebody off, then I'll be in big trouble.
We're just going to say all sponsors in general. We couldn't be doing what we do without them and without people like you, Brian.
And to learn more about it, they can go to those pages and then they can click on the sponsors and go buy their wares, right?
Yeah, and here's the deal. When you go there, it has what they call them, hyperlinks, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah.
So when you click on it, it goes straight to their website. And obviously, these people have been with us for a long time, most of them. So, and we do appreciate everything they do, because I can tell you right now, if they weren't helping us with it, we would have already been done a long time ago. So, thank goodness they all come on there to help us out. And then, they're in the racer support, thank all those guys. I mean, they've been very, very loyal, for a long time now. And so, it's awesome to have. There's some shady individuals, but 99% of them are great. So the racers are awesome for sure.
But bottom line, it's simple. RaceDXP.com gives you everything.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you for being my crash test dummies on this new era of the Dragzine podcast. Nothing exploded. Nobody died. We made it through. It's great. It's awesome. Love to have you guys back on again in the future, and have wonderful holidays, and look forward to seeing you at the track in 2021.
Merry Christmas, big dog.
Merry Christmas.